Hello.
He was one of these guys that he knew everyone and everything, and if ever you wanted a little job doing, he'd do it for you.
He'd do it for you.
Do it cheap, innit?
Whatever. Cash.
Yeah. So he'd come in and I'd be like, oh, hi, Mark, how's it going? And he's like, yeah, it's all right, love. How are you? And like, he'd talk
He
like
loved us,
this.
though.
He did love us. But we were always a bit scared of him, weren't we, Bri? Because we knew, like, you know, he could have our cafe burnt down to the ground.
Hello. I could eat about 1.5 million of these.
Well, nobody's perfect.
Welcome to the It's a Drama podcast.
Daddy, I love him.
My mother thanks you.
If you can't say something nice.
Right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Hello and welcome to the It's a Drama podcast. I'm Liz.
And I'm Brian.
And we're husband and wife, and we talk about travel, family, food, making money online, and creating the ultimate independent lifestyle that we all crave. And I tell you what, we are pros.
Yeah. How fast can you talk?
Well, I can talk really fast when I have to.
I didn't hear one gap in between those words. So if you're a foreigner, as in Johnny Foreigner, as they used to call it years ago, I don't know, that's probably not acceptable. I'm a foreigner in this
Welcome
country.
to the show. Welcome
Anyway.
to the show. Yes, here we are. Look, talking about what we're going to be talking about today, Bri, is we've got a bare necessity show for you today.
How much did I used to love that song?
What, the bare necessities?
Yeah.
So how are you? Have you had a good week? Have you missed us? Because we've missed you, haven't we, Bri?
Yes.
The only time we get to chat to each other is when we involve you in the conversation, when we say, right, get the microphones out, let's have a chat.
Let us know if you want us to do a chat having an evening meal.
Oh, don't be silly.
Well, that's the other time we get to talk.
I know, but we're sloshed, so we can't talk then, can we? Imagine that. It'd be awful.
You have to try to do a podcast with your mouth full of food.
So this week, we have got a great show for you, because let me tell you, Liz Miss Smarty Pants here, wife of Brian, has been doing her research. And today I thought it'd be a really fun thing, Brian, because I was walking down the beach this morning. We're bringing this podcast to you from New Zealand. We live in New Zealand. We're British. We emigrated to New Zealand 14 years ago. And yeah, we're bringing this podcast to you from New Zealand. And this morning, I was walking along the beach, and you know when you just feel that first sign of spring? Because obviously it's winter in New Zealand. Yeah. And I know it's only August, and you're going to start questioning me and bringing me up and saying, oh, you're wrong, Liz, because spring isn't on the way yet. But I just got that feeling, you know, when you just get that smell in the air, when you think, spring.
It's a bit the other way around in the summer. You're in the summer, and then you just get a waft of winter.
Yeah.
It's like, because it's getting towards September if you're in the Northern Hemisphere.
So I'm really sorry to you, for those of you who are in the Northern Hemisphere, but make the most of it, because it's coming to an end.
It's getting darker for you now.
Yes, and spring is now on the way to the Southern Hemisphere.
Our evenings are getting lighter.
Stuff, yes. Yeah. But yeah, I was just walking along and I thought, I wonder what could we talk about on the podcast today? And I thought, what would be really great to talk about? What sort of things happen in the spring? Like, you know, what do you celebrate in the thing? What do you associate with spring? What would you say you associate spring with?
Bluebells.
Anything else? So flowers, I'll give you a clue.
Daffodils, bluebells, all that sort of, blossom, cherry blossom, all those sort of things.
You're on the right way.
Yeah, because fresh green, lime green grass and all that sort of stuff.
Because I associate it with something that people tend to do in springtime. And I wonder if you can just guess what it is, because it does include flowers. So what do you think people do? What do they tend to do around springtime, summertime?
Get out in the garden.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can do that in the garden. Yeah. What I'm thinking of, you can do it in the garden, and it includes flowers.
Includes flowers.
Includes flowers. Yes.
Includes flowers.
So, anything else, Bri, that you think? Use your brain. Use your thinking brain. Put your thinking cap on.
What? That's going to be difficult. Can I get ChatGPT-4 to answer the question?
What do people do in the spring/summer that involves the garden, outside, and flowers?
I don't know. Plant flowers for the summer.
You're useless.
Yeah,
they get married, Brian. They
get
married.
Don't.
Yes, they do.
They get married all year.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
Why?
We got married in the bleak midwinter.
Well, it doesn't count, does it? But I'm just talking about normal people, not us.
Yeah.
Like normal people.
Traditional folk.
Exactly. Traditional folk see spring and summer as a time to unite and come together and show their love for each other and get married.
All right.
So what I thought today would be a really great thing to talk about.
We had to get married when the business closed for our Christmas break.
Cheap.
Yeah.
It's cheaper
There
in
you go.
January.
Yeah. No.
We won't be getting married in the summer.
When can we get married? Only when we close the business.
We are going to talk to you about mine and Brian's wedding because I don't think we've ever talked about our wedding on this podcast. So I thought that'll give you a nice
Probably
treat.
a good idea, really, Liz.
Yeah, it would
Yeah.
by us being married and everything.
Yeah.
But what I did is because I thought, I don't know, I just got the feeling of love in the air, and I thought, let's talk marriage and let's talk about things. And luckily,
What day is it today?
Why?
I'll just write this down in the calendar. You were happy.
She was happy and thought of
Goodness,
love.
what did I do right this morning when I got out of bed?
No, but I just thought I'll just do a little bit of research, bring people some good stuff this week because I know that often we just ramble and just talk complete rubbish.
But that's what everybody does, don't
So
they,
I
really?
thought this week I'll be structured. So I looked on the internet and I actually typed in, famous weddings. But while I was on the internet, when you're on the internet and like things flash up on what they called ads.
Your little fingers are going up and down, like
ads.
you're scrolling on a phone.
An ad flashed up, right? And what it was an ad for this website, weird things that have happened today. I think it was like weird and wonderful things that have happened today in the world.
Right.
So I click on it, obviously, because, it was clickbait and I was tempted. And so I clicked on it.
It got you.
And I've got a little story I want to share with you, Bri. And it involves a wedding. So before we go on and tell people about our wedding, I want to tell you about this wedding that happened in Boulder, Colorado.
All right.
So listen to this story, Bri.
In the winter?
So this takes place, actually it's in the Northern Hemisphere. So it's hang on, let me just open my
Oh, is it just
phone.
recently?
Yeah, this happened like literally 2 days ago.
All right, so
Hang on,
they're
I
getting
can't-
married in the summer then, eh?
Oh, Bri, what's my code on my phone to open it? I can't open it.
So as everybody, Liz, it's normally your birthday or whatever.
Hang on, I'll do Face ID. Right, okay. So this is the article that came up. Ready?
Right.
So this happened on August the 8th. A Colorado's couple's wedding started with monsoon rains and ended with an uninvited guest raiding the dessert table. So what happened was this couple, they set out to get married. They think it's a beautiful day in August. They live in Colorado.
Yeah.
Well, everyone knows it's lovely there.
Where is
because-
Colorado?
In Boulder.
In Boulder.
Yeah.
Is it? Or is it the way around?
It's America.
Is it Boulder, Colorado?
Everyone knows that Boulder, Colorado
We're hopeless with our states,
is
aren't we?
beautiful, Brian. Well, I happen to know that is a very, very
Right.
beautiful place.
Okay.
So this couple, they're called Kaylin and Brandon, and they get married and they invite all their guests over and everything is beautiful. And you know what it's like? They've got all these tables outside and a big fancy wedding. They've been planning it for years. And it says, their Boulder County wedding, which took an unplanned turn when monsoon rains began to fall right before they exchanged vows. So here they are, they're just about to exchange vows. Everyone's outside, she's looking beautiful, all the pictures are lovely, and the sky's open.
Yeah.
Well, that would be horrible, wouldn't it? Imagine that.
Are they not in a church or they're not in somewhere?
No, they're outside in the garden just giving their vows.
There's no buildings in
But listen to what they say.
Right.
So it says, so by the time it started pouring rain on us in the middle of the ceremony, us and all our guests were soaking wet.
Right.
Do you know what he says then?
Go on.
But it was awesome.
Oh, right.
It was totally awesome. Yeah. The next surprise came during the reception. When there they are at the reception with all their guests, they've paid all this money. I'm going to talk to you later about how much weddings cost.
Yeah.
There they are paying all this money for this guest.
Yeah.
They look over to the dessert table. I'm paraphrasing here. This isn't what's written in the article. I'm just telling you my own story. They look over to the dessert table with all these beautiful desserts on that they've paid caterers to make.
Not anymore.
Guess what?
Go on.
It's not too often to go into your dessert table and see a bear crashing it and eating every single thing on the table.
Probably just a guy in a bursuit.
But so that's what happened. So there they are. Not only have they planned this perfect wedding in Boulder, Colorado, where everyone knows that Boulder, Colorado is really beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm thinking pine trees. I'm thinking, I don't know, I'm just thinking lovely light, just in the mountains, maybe somewhere.
Yeah. Get your Landsy lens out.
Yeah, they've invited all these people. There they are. They're saying their vows. Pause down. Monsoon. Drenched. Wet. Still happy.
Yeah.
Still go on with the wedding.
We can carry on.
Yeah.
Yep.
They just say, this, we're not going to let this put us off.
Wet wedding dress competition.
Yeah, exactly. My sweat t-shirt. It then goes on into the afternoon when it's time to give their guests some food. There's the dessert table.
No longer.
And a big black bear sitting on top of it, just scoffing its face with all the desserts. Can you believe that, Brian?
No, I
But
can't.
what I can't believe is the guy said, oh no, it was the lady. She said, life doesn't always go to plan, but it's how you get through it together, she said. It ended up being the perfect Colorado wedding.
Oh, well, that's
Isn't that lovely?
It's great that it happened like that, but I just think that, wouldn't you just look at the weather forecast and think, oh, look, the rain radar is going to show that it's going to rain right on the wedding. So wouldn't you do something about that?
Okay, now, hang on here, Miss. But no, hang on. So you know how long it takes to plan a wedding.
Yes.
It takes absolutely months, if not years. Some people take years to plan their wedding.
Yeah.
So if you've planned it, say on the 6th of August, like they did,
and
you've invited all these guests, you've booked the reception, you've got the
hopefully it's going to be
cake
nice weather
made.
in the middle of summer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't plan on it being a monsoon, do you, Bri?
No.
And you certainly don't plan on a bear crashing your wedding and eating your bloody chocolate cake that's been on the dessert table. Imagine that.
I know. Can you remember when we used to live in Canada and we used to have to go down to they used to call it the compactor. And we, coming from England, we used to get, the people would come and collect the bins, wouldn't they? But in Canada, you had to take it to the compactor. And we were like, well, what is the compactor? And you get all your bin bags, you throw it in, then press the button.
Oh, I love that noise. I loved it.
Yeah, and it would like squash it all up, and that would be it, wouldn't it?
There goes your rubbish.
But you had to be careful because there were bears.
Yeah.
And it was like middle of winter, but because there was food out for them, they were coming out of almost hibernation and walking around the compactors and things.
But what would you do, Bri, if you were just in your garden with all your guests around? Because you can't exactly freak out because you've got to look cool, haven't you? You can't be, you're under pressure because also it's your wedding day. You're supposed to be happy with the one you love. Yeah. You'd have to kind of try and make it into oh my God, look there's a bear on our table eating all our food, that we've paid for.
I wonder what happened to the bear.
What would you do though? Would you just go on, shoot?
We'd have to, wouldn't you? Did someone get no, in America they got the Colt 45 and shot it in the air.
No, they wouldn't do that.
No, as in shot just to frighten it away.
Oh, I wouldn't
wonder if anyone did that. I wonder what happened to that bear.
Yeah, because what if it went psycho and then turned on you and just started running,
coming for
ripping the dress off the bride?
Coming for the proper food, not just the dessert.
So we thought it would be a good idea.
The cake.
When I heard that story, I love that story because one, I can't imagine what those guests. I would love that. I would love it if I was a guest at that party because I'd be thinking, oh, please freak out. Please lose it.
That's nice. It's just destroy.
I would.
You'd be like, if you didn't really like the couple, you'd be rubbing your hands, wouldn't you? Thinking, ooh.
I just mean I'd be interested to see what the couple did.
Yeah.
But I mean, as always, they're being positive and they're seeing the awesome side of it.
Yeah.
And they think it's fantastic. And that's great because I always like positivity and stuff.
Yeah. But isn't it funny the difference between getting married in the UK and getting married in America? Well, like you see, even like Meet the Fockers and stuff like that, all the weddings were outside, weren't they?
Well, yeah.
Or every sort of show that you see, they always seem to have a little outside wedding.
Yeah, and most people do have an outside wedding. It's only because we got married in January.
It was against the law in the UK at one time.
Why?
But not that long ago, because in New Zealand you can get kind of married everywhere. You just need someone like I can't remember what it is, like a justice of the peace or something like that, who can do the vows and the wedding vows and stuff like that. Where in the UK it had to be a registered person in a registry office or a church.
Oh, right, okay.
And they did change the rules where then you could get married. Remember they used to get married in that Atlantic hotel. They had that little archway.
Do you know what I think would be really cool, Bri?
What?
Is if you got married in Vegas. And I'm not talking I know your brother got married in Vegas. Did he? Or did he just have the reception?
Yeah.
I think that would be so cool because you could just say, I don't know, we got married in Vegas. That just sounds so...
Yeah.
It just sounds so
By
American.
Elvis.
Yeah, it just sounds so good, doesn't it?
Yeah. But it does, but it's the... I remember when we were on honeymoon in Jamaica and people were getting married on that little pier, weren't they? But it seemed like very lonely because they were like they were there in Jamaica and they got married and they had the lovely wedding dress and the suit and everything, but they were just on their own.
Well,
so
talking about
maybe that happens in Vegas as well.
Yeah, talking about lonely, let's talk about our little lonely wedding because
it was quite lonely.
We did only have 12 guests and we want to talk to you about why we did that. But before we jump in,
just tight asses, Liz.
Before we jump in and tell you all about our wedding, because I know you're dying to know.
Yeah.
I just want to stay on the bear theme and talk to you about the bear that we hired to show up for our wedding.
I don't know what you're talking about now. Oh, I know what you mean now.
Let me explain. So, let me just take you back. I want to go back to, when did we get married? 1999, was it? Or 2000? When was it, Brian?
Do you know?
Tell me.
Well, it was 2000.
I've got hormone brain, haven't I? I don't know.
Yeah, that's what we always said. You always know how many years you've been married because of what the year is in the 2000s.
Okay.
So we got married on the 8th of January.
When?
2000.
2000, right. So let me take you back to the
new millennium, the new
let
era.
me take you back to January 2000.
Liz forgot our anniversary once.
We had a cafe. We've told you about that cafe before. We were living in Bath in England. We didn't have any kids. And we had this cafe that we turned from a greasy spoon into, I am not joking, that cafe
A big greasy spoon.
It was divine.
Yeah.
It was so popular. It was just so friendly. You've just got to
We used to
imagine
make the best sandwiches in Bath at the
we
time.
We did. And it was
Bath.
such a good time. It was hard work. We worked 6 days a week, 10 hours a day. But it was just such a popular place. We just used to have queues out the door. And what we I suppose this theme has continued on because what we prided ourselves, what's the word? Prouded ourselves on.
Prouded ourselves.
What we prouded ourselves on
What we
was the fact that we kept everything just really local and real and down to earth and just good value.
sold the best ham there, Liz?
We did, Brian. We just sold the best ham. And no, we knew everyone. Well, I did. I knew everyone's name. Every single person that came in, I knew their name.
You were brilliant at faces. We could go out to the shops, like go and get your evening meal or whatever it was from the supermarket, and Liz would recognise all the customers.
I did because
and I'd be like, "Who's that?"
Yeah, they were important to me. They
I
were.
know. But you've always had one of those things for facial recognition.
Yeah, and I've always had a thing where I think everyone deserves to be recognised. You know, it's just that's all anyone wants is just to be known, just recognised, and just be. I think, anyway, that's a whole different thing. But we prided ourselves on, what's the word? Is it prided?
I would say.
We prided ourselves on, that sounds so wrong. If you know the right word, email me. Liz, it is a drama. Okay, so we
prided. We prided ourselves.
What is the word? I don't know.
Yeah, you've got me because I'm thinking it is prided. There's nothing wrong with it. We were proud that we did this. So we prided ourselves on being the best at this.
And we knew all our customers and everyone was treated equal and you just got brilliant sandwiches and we just gave you brilliant value, lots of smiles, lots of conversation. Anyway, one of our customers was a guy. Shall I say his name? No, I better not say his name.
Just call him Mark.
Let's just call him Mark then for the sake.
That was his real name, but we won't say what his surname was.
You are rubbish.
Why?
I have just said to you, shall I say his name? And you're like, no, let's just call him Mark. And that's his name.
But there's millions of people called Mark.
Why didn't you just say something like Dan or Dick or John or someone? Why did you actually...
Let's call him Dickie. Hey, Dickie.
All right, okay, let's just say his name was Mark. It was, but let's pretend it wasn't and let's pretend it is. Okay, so here we go. Yeah. So we've got this guy that comes in and... You know, he's an ex-con. He's been in prison.
We didn't know that, but we figured it out.
We figured it out. He used to come in and he was the loveliest guy. He was about 6'2". He was built like a brick shit house, basically.
He was a rugby player. Ex-rugby player. He really was a big boy.
And he talked like this. He had the most broad Devonshire accent that you could ever imagine. Yeah. And he'd come in and he'd tell us all stories about when he was inside.
That sounds more Cornish. It's not Devon. It's more
you do it then. Go on, you do
Bristol.
it. Go on, you do it.
Talk a bit more like that, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, that's it.
It's a bit like a doozer and...
Yeah, that's it, yeah. Oh, until you've not been in prison. Is that how he talks then?
Sure, you sound more like Sure now. Yeah.
When I was in prison, I had such a good time when I was in prison. It was great. Anyway, he had this really strong accent and he would come in, he had a skinhead. He was just like a big, soft giant.
He was a big, soft giant, but he was quite angry.
He was a bruiser.
Yeah, because remember when because he had a lovely car. That's what we were talking about. And he never used to put.
Well, he was dodgy.
He never used to put money on in the meter or anything like that. And then when the traffic warden came out, he'd almost like go and just scream at them, like, you know, grab hold of them.
Just kick them.
They used to hide in the doorways, the traffic wardens, and he'd be constantly looking out because he knew he hadn't put any money on it. And he'd see him go over because they'd already written the ticket out, and he'd run out, like, you know, and then jump in the car and drive off before they had a chance to put it in.
He was a thug, but he was a lovely thug, and he bought lots of nice sandwiches off us from our cafe.
You could have got anything from Mark.
Oh, yeah. He was one of these guys. I tell you what,
he actually was a builder.
Yeah, well, he was everything. That's what I'm saying. He was one of these guys, been there, done that, done everything. But he tried everything, I have.
Yeah, he never used to build new houses, but he'd do extensions.
He was one of these guys that he knew everyone and everything. And if ever you wanted a little job doing, he'd do it for you.
He'd do it for you.
Do it cheap, innit?
Whatever. Cash.
Yeah. So he'd come in and I'd be like, oh, hi, Mark. How's it going? And he's like, yeah, it's all right, love. How are you? And like, he'd talk like this. He did love us. But we were always a bit scared of him, weren't we, Bri? Because we knew, like, he could have our cafe burnt down to the ground.
We always check what's in there. Make sure he never left anything in there.
He would never do that to us. No. But anyway, he was a regular customer and he'd come in and he'd stand there and he'd chat, like Bryce said, chat at the end of the counter. He'd have his bacon sandwich and, his cup of tea. And we just loved him and he loved us, thank God. That's why we're still here. Anyway, one day we get chatting to him. We say, "Oh, we're going to get married next year, Mark." Or we got married in January. I think this was in about the August.
Yeah.
We said, "Oh, we're going to get married next year, Mark." He said, "Yeah." Got your driver?
We have now.
We were. And we went, "What?"
There's no other choice. I was going to use that proper company with that old car.
He said, "As a gift to you, I'd like to be your driver for your wedding day." And it was horrible, wasn't it, Bri? Because we couldn't say no.
It only cost you £280.
No, he did it for nothing.
Did he?
Yes.
Shit.
He said, as a gift
did,
to
didn't
you,
he?
yes.
Yeah.
So we couldn't go around and say no.
No.
Because it was like...
Yeah, but he turned up though, Liz.
Well, I know, we're going to talk about internal. Just hold your horses a little bit there, Brian. Hold your horses.
Yeah.
So what it was is he said, like, I do it properly. I do it all proper. Everything will be proper job.
Let's come in on Cornish
Brian,
proper job.
This is how he talked.
Okay.
And we said, oh, have you got a car, Mark? And he said, oh, yeah, I've got a beautiful car.
Cornish ass. Beautiful.
You say it then. You say it.
I can't think about what it's like, but anyway.
He said, I've got a beautiful car. He said, and I tell you what, he said, I'll make sure that you have the best wedding day that you've ever had in your life.
Yeah. A blue Mercedes it was.
Yeah, and you knew that he had this really nice car.
It was a nice car for the time, yeah.
It was a beautiful car.
Yep.
And I went home with Brian that night and I said, oh, God, what are we going to do?
Yeah, you can't say no.
We can't say no because he'll have us done over.
Yeah.
Plus, we like him.
Yeah.
But this was our special day.
Yeah.
And what it is with our wedding, we had planned a very, very small, intimate wedding.
Yeah. Just immediate family members, wasn't it?
At our wedding, we only had 12 guests. And our reasoning behind that was, you go to these big weddings and... each to their own, whatever you want to do. But we decided that rather than when you go to these big weddings and you have to pay for the bar and you never get to see the bride and groom because they're off talking to your third cousin, next door neighbour. Yeah. You never get to see them.
You never get to sit at the top table.
We like to say this is our excuse, but actually the truth is we didn't have any friends.
No.
So we just said, let's just invite the people that like us, which is 12 family members.
And not only that, no kids.
Yeah. See,
that was the other thing. Yeah, we hated kids back then, didn't we?
We did. We couldn't stand them. Yeah. And we said, no kids at our wedding. Well, that was a bit harsh, wasn't it? But
no, it wasn't, because you know what? It's a pain in the arse when the kids are there. They're all running around like idiots.
True,
true. Just ban kids from all weddings.
So what we said, you just got to think, we were quite yuppie back then, weren't we, Bri? We were quite yuppie. And we said, no children. And we're only having 12 guests. So we invited 12 guests and we made sure what our aim was for these 12 guests was to have the best time of their life at our wedding.
Yeah.
And we just supplied everything. We said, I think we allowed 2 bottles of champagne per person. We did all the catering. We put them up in this beautiful historic house in the centre of Bath that we were staying in too. So we hired this a 7-bedroomed house, didn't we?
It was a full, it was a 3-story, 4-story house, and it was, I can't remember the name of the company, like English Heritage or something. They used
brilliant.
You could just you could rent it. You weren't supposed to hold functions there or anything like that.
No,
or
we
parties.
just did, didn't we?
But we did. Yeah,
we
didn't
just had
tell
our
them
wedding reception
because we hired caterers, didn't we, and everything else.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the company, but like you say, you can hire things like castles, you can hire lighthouses, and this was bang set in the middle of Bath in this cobblestone little square with beautiful trees in the centre. It was divine. It was Georgian, 5 floors, something like that, wasn't it? With a big bed, all beautiful bedrooms furnished.
Exactly like it was back in the day.
Gorgeous.
It was just English,
it was all painted eggshell blue and gold.
I can't remember the name of that company. But
anyway, we hired this house and we invited our 12 guests to come and stay with us for the night. And we just had a big party. We had, caterers and, like I say, champagne. So That's just to give you the tone of the wedding. So this is what we wanted. It was going to be posh.
Yes.
It was going to be good.
Yeah.
But here we have Mark the thug, the ex-con, telling us that he wanted to be the driver that drove the bride and groom to the church.
No, the bride and your
and you,
brother
on the way home.
He went away from the church. Yeah.
Do all the driver job.
Yes.
So I went home to Brian that night, and I remember saying to you,
and not only that, he was taking us to the hotel at night, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Up in London.
He drove us to London the next day. And
no, that night.
That night, that's right. But he promised us, he said, and you can't say, can you? Well, hang on a minute. Are you going to polish your act up a little bit? Because, I don't want you on the photos looking like
Don't want you wearing your rugby shirt.
And don't come in your prison outfits.
Stripy one. Is that rugby shirt? Or are those arrows on your shirt, mate?
So, yeah. And as the time was going on, and as it was coming closer to the wedding, he'd keep coming in, wouldn't he, Brian?
Yeah.
And he'd say, not long now. You can rely on me, and all stuff like this, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And I must admit, right up until the day he pulled up outside, because I went and stayed in a beautiful hotel.
In the Crescent.
In the Crescent in Bath. Now, if you don't know what the Crescent is, the Royal Crescent in Bath. Do you remember? If you've ever watched the film Oliver, and I don't know if this is where it was actually filmed, but I think it was.
No, the tourists used to say that.
Well, I think it was. I think you're right. I don't think you know what you're talking about. But you know, when in the scene where she hangs out the window and she's like, "Who will buy my wonderful?" And you see all like the horse and trap coming up and down the Crescent, and it's like this big crescent of houses overlooking the royal city of Bath. Well, that is the Royal Crescent. And bang slap in the middle of the Royal Crescent
is the Royal Crescent Hotel.
Is the Royal Crescent Hotel.
Yeah.
And I stayed there on my night, the night of my, the night before my wedding.
Yeah, because I wasn't allowed to see it.
No, and I stayed there with my mum and my sister. Yeah. And it was just glorious. And I've got such beautiful photos of me outside on the Crescent in my dress, and it was just beautiful. But Mark said, I'll come and pick you up. I'll come and pick you up outside the Crescent.
In his T-shirt.
And right up until that morning, literally, I was on pins. I just thought, what is it?
What's going to
happen?
Yeah.
Now then, here's what happened. He pulls up in this blue Mercedes. It was beautiful, wasn't it, Bri? He had those ribbons. He tied ribbon. He tied ribbons.
It just looked brilliant, didn't it?
It did. Gold ribbons from the front of the thing, on the front of the car.
To the Mercedes badge.
Badge. And he steps out the car. And honestly, I had to look twice, Bri, because there he was. He stepped out of the car. He held open the door for me.
Yeah.
You know, when they do the door and they stand to the side. He was dressed in a dark navy blue suit.
A proper chauffeur's suit.
A chauffeur's suit.
Yeah, with a hat.
And not a crease on that suit, right? And those shoes, I looked down, those shoes were polished. You could see your face in those shoes.
He looked amazing, didn't he?
He looked flipping brilliant.
He looked like your ultimate bodyguard.
He did. He did
though, didn't he?
And do you know what? When I walked past him, I said, "Hi, Mark." And he said, "You look beautiful." Oh, I'm going to cry. He said, "You look beautiful." And he opened the door and I got in and sat in the back of the car. It was so lovely.
He was. He was such. He was a gentleman and a scholar that day. He really, really was. Because he just, even when you'd say, "Hey, Mark, how you doing?" He would just be like, "Okay, sir."
Yeah.
And he called us sir and madam and stuff like that right through the whole thing and kept it super professional because everyone was around. He was outstanding.
So and that's my best story. And I remember just driving along with him, and he was just so upright, and so I just felt like he was looking after us.
He was, and that's what he did. And even when, because we left the wedding breakfast around about 8, probably 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And he drove us all the way to London, which was about 2.5 hour drive to London, to this country hotel that we stayed in.
Yeah.
And he got out and he wouldn't let me lift the bags in. No. And he put all the bags in. And then he was talking to the receptionist girl who was on, because it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, wasn't it? Like, you know, because it was like a 5-star hotel and whatever. A gorgeous house that was as well. And
it was all gorgeous.
He just said to them, "Any chance of a cup of tea, love?"
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. And I said, "Do you want to stay with you?" And he was like, no, you get yourself to bed, mate. And I'm going to have a cup of tea here with the lovely receptionist.
If you want to see a picture of Mark and us at our wedding, why don't you email me at liz@itsadrama.com. I've got a picture in my wedding album, and it's a picture of Mark standing there in his suit.
Yeah.
And he is He's looking at it. We're having confetti thrown off.
I think that was in the little streets.
Background.
Yeah, because we got married in the ancient church of.
Because now I feel like I want to
Mel's.
show people. It's just like I hope we've described it enough. But yeah, it's making me cry because it was one of those perfect examples of someone just like coming really good for you and just.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I keep saying about not judging someone, and obviously we were judging him because it was like we're having a bit of a laugh here and like, you know, what's he going to turn up like? But he was just such a gentle giant that day.
He was, yeah.
And he made my day feel so flipping special, just the way he was so professional. And do you know, that was the other thing he did. He got champagne in the back of the car.
Yes, he did, didn't he? Yeah, so when we came out the church, we had a glass of champagne, a little half bottle of champagne in the back of the car.
Right.
Yeah, a little bottle of Moët Chandon.
So if you're listening, Mark, your name is Mark.
Yes.
If you're listening, I won't say your surname because, you know, but you did. You made our day absolutely gorgeous. So that was my story of a bear at our wedding, a big bear at our wedding.
He was a great guy. I like Mark. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on and keeping on the wedding theme, because I know you were talking about this the other day. You were saying about, oh, God, I hope Tessa never gets married and expects us to fork out the bill for the wedding.
Don't worry. Yeah.
I know, but the thing is, Bri, it is known that the bride's dad pays, I mean, mine didn't, but the bride's dad pays for the wedding.
Yeah, unlucky Cliff.
So what?
Cliff, you know what I mean.
So what I was thinking, Bri, is have you any idea, just so you know, you better start saving now. I mean, you know, you can send your donations in.
Yeah.
Have you any idea how much a typical New Zealand wedding would cost?
Well, in New Zealand, it would just be sausage sizzle and, you know, down the local bar.
Wouldn't actually. How much?
So, well, I don't understand why people spend so much money on weddings because it's for one day.
Are you kidding?
What's the point?
When you just talked about how much we've spent on our wedding.
We didn't spend that much.
Of course we did.
Did we?
Yes. All it was with us is we spent a lot of money, but we gave it to very small people.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is
like
but
condensed.
It was, I suppose it was condensed. But I look at it, I think our catering bill was 300. It was about 3.5, maybe $4,000 for the catering for the one day.
Yeah.
And the place was cheap. What was cheap as chips?
The place was £500 a night.
Was it? And we
had it for 2 nights. Yeah, so £1,000.
Yeah. So yeah, it probably cost us no more than £8,000, something like that for our wedding. I think it was £6,000.
No, it wasn't 6. You're going down now.
I'm not talking about your dress and everything.
My dress was £2,000.
It was 3 actually. My suit was the same. So
my mum paid for my dress. Thank you, Mum. Thank you so much.
I had to pay for my own suit.
Anyway, so you're going off topic. How much do you reckon you're going to have to save up to pay for Tessa's New Zealand wedding? What is the average cost of a guest
in New Zealand
of a wedding?
Oh, a guest.
No, what's the average cost of a New Zealand wedding? I'm just talking. Okay, let me make it easier for you. I am just talking.
So you had 50 people or something like that.
50 people.
Yeah.
Good choice. Good guessing.
Yeah.
50 people. Okay, we're going to get married in. Let's just say this. We can get married on the beach, you know, pay someone, I don't know who you pay, but pay someone to come and do the vow thing, you know, marry you.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we're going to go back. We've hired a marquee. We've got some catering.
Yeah.
We've got 50 guests
so
coming.
you go into the local vineyard, say,
wherever you want to
on
go.
the cliff. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. How much
I would
are you
say it would
allowing?
probably cost you about $40,000.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah.
35,000 is the average. 35,000 New Zealand dollars.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the only thing is,
which would be about 20,000 US, wouldn't it?
The only thing is, Bri, 35,000 is about £17,000.
Yeah,
and
about 20,000 US.
Just over 20,000 US.
Yeah. It's cheap, really, when you look at it like that, I suppose.
Well, yeah. The only thing is,
what?
Well, I just got the breakdown of this. I'm not going to read it all out here, but I got the breakdown, like what is the typical cost of a wedding? And it broke it down like, you know, you're going to pay $2,000 for your DJ. You're going to pay $800 for your...
I could have do the DJ for $2,000.
No, I thought that. Yeah. I'll do that. Yeah, exactly.
Hey,
Get
Cliff,
you on down there, Brian.
If you're on a DJ, mate.
$800 for the photography. So how much do you think they've allowed? This is, I can't get my head around this. For 50 guests, don't look.
Oh.
For 50
I can't read your writing anyway.
For 50 guests, how much do you think they've allowed for the catering? For 50 guests?
50 guests. It would be, it'd be about...
This is just food, not drink.
Not drinks. So that would be $150 a guest. No, $100 a guest. Because you got to have waiters and everything, haven't
Guess
you?
what?
What?
$400.
A guest?
No.
What?
Have I got that right?
What, for 50?
$400 for 50
No,
guests.
that'd be 4,000, surely.
Do you reckon?
For 50, yeah, because it'd be about $100 a head would give you a decent meal, you know, because obviously it's you've got to include waiting on staff and stuff like that, unless it's a buffet.
Okay, so here it is. Look, this is the thing for $15,000. No, yeah, $30,000.
Yeah.
Catering. Oh no, sorry, no. It says catering $4,000 for the food.
Yeah, which is about $90
guests.
a head, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that what it works out to?
Well, roughly, yeah. I think that's just me just guessing.
$4,000 divided by 50. How much do you think that is, Bri?
What's that? It's about 90, something like that.
$80 a person.
All right, $80 a person then.
That's quite generous.
Yeah.
I was thinking it wasn't very generous, but that is quite generous, isn't it?
It is, but it's normally, you know, a 4-course meal, isn't it, with a wedding? You know, because you know, yeah.
So yeah, what's the best wedding you've ever been to?
I have to admit, ours.
You're not allowed to say your own, are you pompous old sod?
Well, there you go.
Mine, my own.
Because it was just easy. Because you got to, the thing I liked about it is like you got to spend time with everybody, the 12 people that were there.
I know.
Which I know if you've got lots of friends and this, that and the other, but we haven't got many friends, so because we always move around, don't we?
Do you know what? Do you know what my favourite wedding was of all time? And I hope she's going to be listening to this. The first wedding I ever went to was my Auntie Marie's wedding.
Oh, right.
She married Roy, my Uncle Roy.
Yeah, it's in black and white back then, wasn't it?
And I just remember I must have been about 5 or 6 years old, and I was her bridesmaid.
Oh, right.
And I was given this long blue satin dress and this little headband. I've got pictures, and it's just... Oh, I remember just feeling... I don't remember the wedding. I don't remember going down the aisle. I don't remember any of it. All I remember is standing in the garden with this blue satin dress on. And it was just like, oh, I loved it. I've never been a bridesmaid or anything else ever again at a wedding. That's the only wedding I've ever been, like, you know, a special guest at. But it was just absolutely gorgeous. And while we're on that as well, a couple of weeks ago, I called out Marie. I said, "Oh, Marie, you're listening to this podcast." She lives in England and she listens to the podcast with her granddaughter. And Ava, I called her Ava, and her name's Tush. Her name's, the little girl is called Tush.
Sorry, Tush.
Yeah. And what I wanted to tell you, Tush, this is a little story for you to tell you so you don't feel like I'm targeting you and getting it all wrong. Yeah. This is how rubbish I am with names. And this is why you're going to forgive me
Better with
now.
faces than names.
This is why you're going to forgive me. Yeah, but I just thought I'd quickly share this story. And this is also to do with Bear Country, because this is going back to Whistler in Canada. Yeah. Once upon a time, me and Brian were chalet hosts in Whistler in Canada. We ran a chalet, a very posh chalet, and we did lots of cooking for people who came over on ski holidays. And we were in charge of 12 people who came over every week from England. They were spending,
the number 12 comes up again.
They were spending lots of money, and it was our job to cook for them in this chalet, this big fancy chalet in Whistler in Canada, and host them and just look after them. And one day we got a guest, and he was there for 3 weeks, which was quite unusual because normally they would come for a week and then they would go again. And this guy's name it wasn't Eric, but what was it? What was his name, Brian?
Actually, no, it was something like Paul. I can't really remember.
This guy's name was Paul. And he came and he said, "Hello, my name's Paul." Now, for some reason, Tush...
He didn't say it. He had a Brummie accent.
I got it in my head that his name was Eric. So whenever I called them for dinner or poured his wine or asked him how his day had been, I would say, "More wine, Eric." And he'd look at me and Brian would say, "Liz, his name's not Eric, it's Paul." Yeah. Anyway, the weeks went by, and every night would be the same. We'd sit down, I'd say, "Would you like some potatoes, Eric?" And he would say nothing. And I could see him bristling, Brian, couldn't I? I could see him bristling. And then just about 2 days before he was due to fly back to England and leave us forever, so he had nothing to lose, I just remember we were all stood around the table, we were drinking wine, and I had the wine in my hand. I said, "Top up, Eric." And he slammed his wine glass down on the table and he said, "For crying out loud, me name's not Eric, it's Paul. It's not Eric, it's Paul." Do you know what I did, Tush? I turned round and I said, "I am so sorry, Eric." Do you remember?
I And my brother was there at the time, wasn't he?
my
Because he was
gosh.
visiting from Florida, and he just looked, the way he just looked round at us as if
it was
I can't believe
horrible.
you've just said that.
And I thought that guy, I
think he was gonna
veins,
stab you.
I thought his veins were going to explode in his eyes. You know, he
Name's
just
not
looked so
bloody
angry.
Eric.
My name's not Eric.
Do you know why that was? Because you used to work for a guy called Eric who was...
He looked like him.
in a cafe, didn't you?
Yeah.
In Newquay. And he had a Brummie accent.
And he looked like him.
Yeah.
So, of course, when I kept looking at him, I thought, Eric. And no matter how many times Brian told me or how many times he would say, you know, and even the other guests would say, you know, he's not called Eric, don't you, Liz? I said, oh, I know. I'll call him Paul from now on. I just couldn't do it. Yeah. So I just want you to know that if, you know.
Maybe
if
next week I'll tell you the Dave story.
So that is that. And also, while we're just here, before we say goodbye, can I just say thank you so much for the gorgeous emails and reviews that we've had.
Yes.
Right, we've had some really nice reviews.
We have had some brilliant reviews and some lovely emails.
Yeah, from lovely emails, both on the book, the reviews on the book, and also on the podcast. So once again, thank you so much. When you get reviews on a podcast, it gets you seen more, doesn't it, Bri?
Well, it does, and that's
Pushes
the thing.
you up the charts.
Yeah, and that's, you know, if you've got a friend, or, you know, if you can subscribe to us, so when, you know, we release a new podcast, you'll see that it's come out, and pass it on to your friends. You know, just forward it in the app, or however it is you do it. Just forward. I love listening to these guys.
Well, you don't tell them what to say, Brian.
No, but no,
they can say what they want.
If you do it, it helps us, and
It does.
it keeps us going, like, you know, because, you know, we've found out recently that we're in the top 2% of all podcasts in the
Who'd
world.
have thought that, Brian?
Who'd have thought that, eh?
Hey?
And we're trying to get up to the top 1.5% and then the 1%. So, you know, it's
funny
just,
how
it's our
you
mission.
don't. Yeah, it's funny. You mean you're quite different because you don't mind telling people when you meet people. You're like, "Oh, hi, we've got a podcast, top 2%."
Well, when I found that out, I was like, you're going to hear this every day from me. And the only way to shut me up is to get me into 1.5%. So that I can change it.
So if you are listening to this podcast and you can find it in your heart just to go down to where you leave a review. I've told you before, if you're listening on
head to the show and not the episode.
Yeah.
Head to the show, as in, you know, visit the show, and then scroll down, and you're at the bottom there is you can leave a review or a star rating for us. That
I
would
had
be
to
great.
change the category. The other day I went on just to check, because I never check these things. I never check what's
Podcasting
happening.
category is just
I know, and I had to
so-
change the category because it said fitness and health. And I'm like, what?
Why? How did that get in there?
How did we get in fitness and health?
I know. I think I did it. I thought, oh yeah, I was probably
Really?
feeling fit at the time.
Did you think you were going to talk about fitness and health? Okay, well, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us with this conversation today. I just love it. I absolutely love having you here. And I know as well how many podcasts there are out there. And the fact that you choose to listen to us just makes me feel flipping lovely. It really does. It makes me feel so grateful to know that you're with me and Brian just in on this conversation. So you have a wonderful week. Stay happy, keep smiling, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, so don't forget, keep things real. Kia kaha, stay strong, and kia u, stay true. And that's true to yourself. And when I say keep things real, we're not AI, are we, Liz?
No, we're not AI, Brian. We're real.
We're real. Real as.
Speak to you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode. We have loved having you here. If you haven't yet bought a copy of my brand new book, The Travel Bog Diaries, then I would love you to go and grab yourself a copy. If you are a traveller, if you are a parent, if you are an aunt or an uncle, or someone who just loves a really good laugh, then you will love the stories that are within my book. It's all about traveling the world as a family with very little money, far too many hormones, and very, very little patience. It's honest, it's real, and it's such a good laugh. You will absolutely love it. You can grab a copy of that book right now by going to www.thetravelbogdiaries.com. Go over to there. The page tells you where you can buy it from all over the world. I really, really appreciate you for doing that. You will love the book. And if you have already bought the Travel Bog Diaries, thank you. I appreciate you. Bri appreciates you. And if you have got time, if you've got a spare 5 minutes and would like to leave me a review, that would mean the world to me. You can do that by going to www.thetravelbogdiaries.com/review. Just hop on there. It literally takes a few minutes, but it means the world to me. So thank you so much. Me and Bri love you. You're fabulous. Have a brilliant week, and I'll speak to you soon.